Hello, I'm Crafty Patti, and thank you so much for tuning in. You're tuning in because you want to make a great big basket. It's like go big or go home, right? So this is what you're going to need to complete a big basket like this. I'm using this cotton sash cord that I got from a local hardware store, but you can certainly buy it online, and I'll give you some suggestions for some supplies, and that will be in the description box below this video. This particular one is 1/4 inch. You'll want 1/4 inch for sure. This one comes in a 100-foot roll or 30.4 meters. So you'll be needing 2 of those. So in total, you'll need 200 feet or 60.8 meters. This is a cotton sash cord, multi-purpose. Depending on how much striping you want or different color fabric you want, could be between a 1/2 meter to 1 meter of fabric. I probably only used, I'd say maybe about 1/2 meter to do these 2 stripes. You'll be wanting to cut 1 inch fabric strips cut on the bias. I'm using broadcloth, but you can use 100% cotton. I'm using only this because I had it on hand and I wanted black. If you don't know how to cut fabric on the bias, then I'll leave a link to that video so you can learn how to cut fabric on the bias. You'll want a tape measure, scissors, pins, lots of thread in the color of choice. I chose to use black, and you'll need at least 4 round bobbins to make the size of basket. It's handy to have some clips. I picked up these from the dollar store, and I like these ones because they've got a nice wide edge that goes right along where the rope sits. I did put 3 of these wooden beads to finish off my basket. You don't have to have these, but look for ones with a really big hole so you can get a large rope through here. If you want the same kind of beads, I'll leave the link in the description box below for you. If you choose to want to unravel your cord at the end, then you can use a pet slicker like this. I got this one at Walmart, or just use a regular hair comb. And of course, you're going to need a sewing machine. You don't want weight pulling on your rope because it can cause uneven surface, and you want it to be nice and flat. So I like to unravel my skein of rope and then I roll it up into a ball. And the first thing I like to do is I like to tape my raveled end because it's much easier to have that all together when you're trying to form your first part of your circle. Because as you can see, you're going to get these little loose ends flying all over the place. I've just got a piece of Scotch tape, and I'll wrap that around my end. And then I'm just going to feel with my nail where the end is, because sometimes it's hard to see. And I'm only going to leave a very, very small amount on there. There's the end there, and I'm going to cut most of it off, just enough to hold those ends in place. And this is how I start all of my rope bowls. We're just going to make a really tight round on that first part, nice and tight. And let's go around for about 4 rounds. Keeping it nice and snug and tight. All right, so once you're there, grab your pins and just hold it in place so it stays there while we go to the sewing machine. And with a straight stitch on the sewing machine, I'm going to sew through this way and then through the other way. So we'll start on the end and back stitch and all the way through. And when you get to the middle here, just to reinforce that middle a bit, I like to backspace and just do a little bit more into the middle and to the end. And backspace. Back stitch. I don't know how many times I say that. Getting old. So we'll take that off and we're going to come through the other way. You might have noticed I have some boards to the side here, and I do this because I don't have a quilting extended bed or tray, whatever you want to call it, and so you want to keep this part of your base flat. As it works further and further out, it's got to be flat, otherwise your bottom of your bowl or basket is going to start to curve up. So I've just grabbed some wood panels and some books, paper, whatever it takes until you've got a nice level edge. Now we're finished with our straight stitch. We're going to move on and change it to a zigzag. Now if you've watched other rope bowl videos of mine, please feel free to fast forward on these because it is the same for all my rope bowls. But for those who have not made a rope bowl before, this is what I do. For my width, it's always at my widest selection. So for me, it's sitting at 5.5. For my length, I like to set it at 4. I don't want it, my zigzags too long, and I don't want them too short. So I find 4 is just about perfect. Now when you start sewing, you want your cord coming off the right side, and you want your bowl or basket forming to the left. So always with your cord to the right. I'm going to come in and I'm going to start to bring this together on the second and third row. Because we've done the X in here, that's going to hold this part of the bowl quite firmly. So I'm just going to go with my second and third row. Now when I line up my presser foot and my rope bowl, I'm lining it up so the center of the break in my presser foot is in the center of the two ropes, and I use that to eyeball on the whole basket. So on the first part, you're going to have to go a little bit slower just to get around because it's a very small circle. So that's to start the first one, and of course backspace. And now we're on our way. And now on the first part, I only go about 2 stitches, lift up my presser foot, and the needle is always on the right, angle it around, do one more, angle it around, and don't worry about this starting to wrap around. We won't sew that in. We'll see what we do in a second here. Again, always keep that needle on the right if you're going to pivot up and around, needles on the right, and continue around. So once you've got your first few rows done, feel free to go a little bit faster when you get more comfortable with it. So now instead of lifting up the presser foot and pivoting, I'm going to use my fingers to pull it around. Like so. You can lift up the presser foot and just let that wrap around till this is coming down to the front. And now we're going to leave this coming down to the front. And we can go a little bit faster now. I'm holding the cord in my thumb I'm making sure that this is not tight and it's nice and loose coming off my ball. And my fingers is guiding the rope a little bit, and I'm pulling it around with my fingers. And I'm watching really carefully that the break in my presser foot is right in the middle of these two ropes as I sew. So continue on and keep sewing until this is a little bit bigger. Now I'm ready to add a little bit of black to my rope, so I've got some stripes on the bottom of my basket as well. This is where the dollar store clips will come in handy. And I'm going to start my wrap on the bottom here, because what I find is when these are both hanging straight down, you don't have to be like flicking this up and over every time, and it goes a little faster. So for now, we're just going to go straight like so. I'm going to tuck this end in so it's nice and secure on that first part of that wrap. We're just tucking in that little corner. Once we've got that nice and secure, then we can start to angle it down. So make sure your first two rounds are nice and tight. And then we're on our way. So now I'm only wrapping and covering half of this inch. So half an inch of this is getting covered. I'm at the end of my wrapping. So I'm just going to adhere that with my little clip, and then I can continue to sew. I just want a little bit of accent of black on the very bottom. So my one piece of black material is going to end right where I almost started. So that's enough for me, so I'm just going to keep sewing. Take our clip off. I like to tuck that little point underneath to hide it, and then bring it in so my hand holds it together. So I'm going to continue sewing just with plain rope with no more black, and I'm going to probably make my base approximately 12 inches, or that would be approximately 31 centimeters. So I'll continue to sew here. I've just realized I've run out of bobbin thread, and so I'm just going to take this off the sewing machine, rewind my bobbin, and start sewing again. I've got my bobbin rewound, and I'm going to come back in. I'm going to try to match up and bring my needle down right to where one of my points on my zigzag is. So when I back stitch on this, it's not going to look like a bit of a mess. It'll just help to make it look a little bit cleaner. So there I go. I've matched that up. Press your foot down, and we're going to back stitch, and away we go. And now that it's getting a bit bigger, instead of using my hand in the middle, I'm bringing my baby finger onto the edge here, and that's what's helping me to guide it around. My little baby finger here isn't pushing in really tight. I'm not pulling on this, but just enough to just slightly guide it into the other rope here. And I'm at my 12 inches. I think that'll be a pretty good base for a nice little bin basket, or that would be about 30.5 centimeters. So now we're going to start forming our sides. I'm going to be bringing my hand underneath my base and lifting it all the way up so it's sitting flat against my sewing machine like so. And then we'll continue sewing around. Before I start adding my black, what I'm doing is I really want to make sure this is a nice straight side, and I'm accenting this just slightly by putting my hand underneath and not just holding to the side of my machine here, but I'm lifting up like so. So therefore the angle is forcing this rope to be just slightly inward so I get a nice straight side. Otherwise, I find on the larger baskets, it'll start to come out a little bit, and I don't want that. So just a little trick there. So I'm going to lift up and sew like that. And keep sewing until you've got the amount that you want for the depth before you add your first color. Now that I've made sure that my sides are forming straight up, I'm going to start adding my color now, which is black. I've already pre-wound some black on my cord, so I can carry on now. And now I won't need to lift it up anymore. I'm going to just do some straight sewing and make sure this is nice and flat. And I'll use my fingers in here to hold it flat as I sew. So around we go. Adding more strips of fabric is easy enough to do. Just take off your last clip, bring on the next one, and then make sure your little end on your last one is tucked in. Bring this one and pull that little end in on the last one. Now bring in your little point in, catch it in there and wrap around, and away we go again. First one will be on the tighter side, and then you can start to drag it down so you're only covering half of your material as before. So if you're making a large basket like I'm making, I've now used up 100 feet of that one skein, and now I have to add another one. So this is a great time to add it if you've got just a little bit more of your fabric strip left and you're at the end of your rope. Then the easiest way is just to grab your next rope and tape the two together, and you'll have your material hiding it, and nobody will know the difference that you've actually got tape in there. So let's grab a piece of tape. We'll start on the rope I've got right here. Let's start to add the next one. And we're just going to squish them together and get that tape wrapped around both of them. And I'm pushing them together quite tightly so there's no gap. And I'll continue to wrap my fabric around my tape portion, and that will hold it nice and secure, and we'll sew right through the join. What I'm doing now as I'm sewing is I'm holding my fingers up here, and my arm is kind of resting on the back side of the basket, and I'm holding it up as I sew. It's a little easier than it flopping around and you can't see what you're doing with your head, with the basket in the way. So just giving it some support with your fingers and sew away. When you wrap your rope with material, it will make your basket a lot firmer than the rope that's not wrapped. Also, the 100% cotton will also give you more stiffness for your basket. I'm using the broadcloth, so not quite as stiff, but it's certainly helping to give it a firm basket. So I'll carry on. I'm going to sew a few more rows of black, and then I'm going to go back to just sewing just with plain rope. So this is as far as I'm going to go with my black, and now I'm going to carry on and do some more rows of just with the plain rope. With the basket getting bigger, I like to hold it up at the top, and then when I'm sewing, my hand just comes around. I only want to use 2 skeins of this rope because that would be like 200 feet. So I want to make sure I've got enough left over for my handles. So I'm taking the end of my rope, I'm going to wrap it around my basket. So I'm just wrapping it around once here just to get my measurement. I'm allowing a little bit more for my handle to come out and bow out. So let's say it's about here. So I've got my measurement there. Now I'm going to do that 3 more times. I'm just taking my rope and I'll measure that 3 more times because I want my handle to be 3 widths of the rope thick. And then allowing for a loop on the handle again, and I've placed a clip, and that's when I have to start my handles. So I'm going to come back in and add some more of my black fabric. And we'll wind this all up and start sewing again. And I'm finishing up with my black, and then I will continue on and make just the plain rope with no fabric. I'm getting close to where I've made my mark. That's where I'm going to start my handles. This is the amount of cord we've left, so we've got room to do 3 rounds of a handle. So I'm going to backstitch and take it off the sewing machine. Look at that lovely big basket. Isn't that beautiful? Now we want to place pins so we know where we're going to put our handles. Here's the end of my cord. I'm going to estimate that this is where I'm going to place my handle, right here. So this is going to be the middle of my handle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just squish in my basket like so, follow it along, and I know that this is going to be the middle of my handle on this side. And squish it along, and I know this is the middle on this end. From where my rope ended and where I placed the middle of my handle marker, that was 2.5 inches or about 7 centimeters. So let's make a mark on the other side again at 2.5 inches. I'm just placing my marker there. So I know that I'll end it here, but we need a little bit of loop in here. So what I'm going to do is at this point, I'm going to measure another 2.5 inches, place my finger there, and that is where I'm going to place my handle. So I'm going to bring that back, and that's where it's going to sit, right there. And that's where I'm going to place my handle. And this is going to come around. We're going to sew around, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side here. So we'll just estimate that when we sew around, this is where I place the middle of my handle. So I want to mark 2.5. That's my first part of the handle. And on this end, another 2.5 on the other side. And I'll place a marker. We'll take this middle one out just so it doesn't confuse us. So I've placed my needle a bit further back from where I started, and I'm going to backspace just to give it a little bit more support so we've got strength at the beginning of our handle here. So we'll just go back a bit, forward, back, and forward. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to sew along this top part here. We're not sewing onto the top of the handle at this point in time. We're going to grab it on our next round. So what you want to do is angle your basket so you're only sewing into this last row. And then angle it back again so you're stitching straight. You can take out that pin. We're going to sew up to this point here. And as soon as you get to close to the pin, we're going to lift the presser foot, push your rope up tight, bring the presser foot down, remove your pin, and now we're going to grab these two and sew along. Just to make sure, I'm going to just use the end of my scissors here just to make sure that stays in nice and tight. Just enough to grab it. Once you've got it grabbed, we'll just do a couple more stitches and then back stitch, forward, back stitch, and forward. Now we're going to sew along till we get to our next pin. Oh, not a good time to run out of bobbin thread. So I've got to take this out. Be careful with that. And we'll have to remeasure that again, and we'll do that again. And I will rewind my bobbin. Not a good time to run out, is it? Okay, so I went back and I remeasured where the middle of my basket was, did my 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches, and back to the machine. Look at where I ran out. Can you believe it? Right before I was going to do that handle part. That's because I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't watching. So I'm back in again. And I'll have to just back stitch here to secure my thread here. And away we go again. I'll sew up to this marker. Go a couple more spaces, take the pin out. And backspace, back stitch. How many times have I said that? I could do too much computer work and the sewing work at the same time, and then I just interchange the words. So we're going to back stitch. Forward and back. Make sure it's nice and secure for the handle. Okay, now at this point in time, now we're going to angle the basket. So we're only stitching on here again. So we'll angle it this way. Sorry if my head gets in the way. Here we go. Stitch up to your pin. Stop right at the pin mark. You can take the pin out because you know that's what went. Here's your marker. So remember, we're going to measure up to here, and then we're going to add another 2.5 inches or about 6.5 centimeters. So now I know I need to take this mark, place it where my pin is. Let's take that pin out. It's going to go right there. I'm just going to push that in with my scissors. Make sure it's in there. I'm going to angle the basket so it's pointing toward that outside rope, and then start to angle it up. Again, making sure that's in there good and tight. There, we've got it. Once we've got it back in the middle, then I'm going to go forward a bit and back. There we go. So now we can go around till we get to our other handle that we first made. So go all the way around. Now we're getting close to our handle here. So when we get to here, we're not going to sew into this one. We're going to sew these two together. So I'm just going to use my scissors to make sure that these stay together. Okay, we've got them both together. Now I can lift up the presser foot, just angle it out a bit, and then sew along these two. Move your basket forward. And then you can see you're getting close to where your handle starts. So we're just going to keep our rope tucked in there. And now we're ready to go around again. Here's our handle. Again, just sewing into the handle. And then finish off the handle. I'm just going to back stitch because I want to take this basket off again. Now I know this is where my handles are, so that's the middle this way. I'm going to now squish my handles together, and then I know where my middle is on the other side. So I'm going to place the pin here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew my cording just to there and then stop. To finish this off, I'm just going to tie a loose knot. I'm going to hold it with my fingers right here so I make sure that the knot stays right up at the end here. Like so. I'll put a piece of tape on the end of my cording and make a little point with the tape, and then I can thread some beads on easily. There's the first one. Let's do another knot. Another bead. And another knot. And I like things in grouping of 3 and 5 rather than even. I like odds. I think it looks better. So let's do one more. And another knot. And let's do one more knot. Let's cut off the end. And you can just start to unravel this a little. Use an ordinary hair comb to unravel this, or you can use a pet slicker, and that will make it go a little bit faster for you. So the easiest way is just to lie it down on the table and then brush away. This particular rope has a synthetic core inside, so I'm just going to cut that away. And then trim it up. Well, I hope I've inspired you to go big and make this beautiful big rope basket, and you can use it for so many cool things. I've got my wool in here right now. Maybe your dog gets to have it for his dog toys, or your child's room to put all their toys in, or use it for a shopping bag. Thank you for watching. Until next time, bye-bye.